What if the debt you owed today began long before you were born? What if the bills you pay, the loans you sign, and the taxes you carry are the result of an ancient transformation that turned paper promises into generational chains? What if the most powerful form of control in the modern world is not armies or governments, but debt itself? This is the hidden story of debt alchemy, and how paper became a tool to bind entire populations. To understand the present, we go back to the origins of lending. Debt used to be personal. It was between two people, tied to honor, reputation, and direct accountability. Communities enforced fairness because everyone knew everyone. But once rulers discovered the power of borrowing, everything changed. Early empires borrowed to wage wars, expand territories, and build infrastructure. Kings issued promises to merchants and bankers. These promises began circulating as early forms of paper money, not because people trusted the rulers, but because they trusted the gold behind the promise. As long as the gold remained, the paper held value. But governments never stopped at matching the amount of gold they held. They borrowed more than they possessed. They issued more paper than they could redeem. And they discovered something dangerous. People rarely asked for the gold back. They accepted the promise instead of the reality. This was the first stage of debt alchemy, turning tangible metal into intangible commitments. Turning commitments into currency, turning currency into power. By the time the world moved into the industrial era, debt became the fuel of progress. Railroads were built on borrowed money. Factories expanded through bonds and credit. Governments realized that entire nations could run on loans rather than savings. Debt was no longer a weakness. It was the engine of growth. But the rise always comes with a breaking point. World War I and World War II forced governments to borrow beyond imagination. Nations owed more than they could ever repay. Gold reserves collapsed under pressure. Paper promises multiplied faster than real value. In 1971, the link between money and gold snapped completely. Nixon ended convertibility, and the era of pure paper money began. Now governments could create money from nothing. Banks could issue credit without limits. Debt transformed from a tool into a weapon. The fallout became visible in every household. Prices rose as money supply expanded. Wages struggled to keep up. People started borrowing just to maintain their lifestyles. Student debt, mortgage debt, and credit card debt became permanent features of adulthood. What once supported growth turned into chains that shaped life choices. Buy a house later. Start a family later. Retire later. Work more. Owe more. Pay more interest than the value of anything you ever bought. Governments attempted fixes, regulations, interest rate cuts, stimulus packages, bailouts, but every fix created more debt than before. Every rescue depended on printing more money. Every solution deepened the problem. The modern system is built on a repeating pattern. Create debt. Use the debt as collateral for more debt. Inflate the economy with borrowed money. Watch it collapse. Print more money to stop the collapse. Repeat the cycle with even more borrowing. Shocking data reveals that global debt has crossed $315 trillion. That is more than 3 times the world's total economic output. This means the planet owes more than it can ever produce. Yet the system demands constant repayment, and the burden falls on future generations who had no part in creating it. Debt alchemy is no longer about transforming metal into money. It is about transforming society into a machine that works to repay promises made decades ago. Your career choices, your savings, your purchasing power, and your opportunities are shaped by decisions made by institutions long before you existed. What are the takeaways? First, modern money is built on debt, not value. Second, every generation inherits the debts created by the previous one. Third, the system grows less stable. Each time new debt is used to fix old debt. Here is the warning. A world built on infinite promises cannot sustain itself indefinitely. At some point the chain breaks, and when it does, the reset will not be gentle. If this opened your mind, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden mechanics of money. Stay aware, stay informed, and never assume the system is what it appears to be.